Now, prime lenses are generally smaller. They have less glass because there's no moving parts. They don't have to work at 70 and 24. They're fixed at 28, 50, 100, whatever their millimeter is, the fixed number that they're at. Overall, they have a lower f-stop normally, a lower aperture. So there's 50 millimeter 1.2, 28 millimeter 1.8. Generally, with zoom lenses, they don't really dip below very often, below 2.8. So in turn, prime lenses are generally much more suited for low light situations, because the difference between a 1.8 and a 2.8 is double the light that the camera or that the lens is taking into the camera. That's a huge difference when you're shooting in a low light situation. Now, it's better in low light. It has a lower f-stop. The only downside, or one of the downsides, is obviously there's no zooming, so you have to physically move closer to your subject if the shot isn't framed properly. So if you're shooting more on the go, a prime is not as ideal, because to physically frame your subject, you have to physically step away or step closer. When you're shooting with a zoom lens, to frame your subject, you simply just zoom in using the lens or zoom out using the lens. So a prime lens is generally used for more controlled situations where you're not going to have to shoot a subject at 200 millimeters and then there's going to be something close to you at more of a 30 millimeter range. You know that you're shooting a certain scenario or scene or interview where there's not much movement, and you can keep the subject at the proper distance, because with the prime lens, yes, it's fixed at one focal length, but it's really, really good at that one focal length. So with that said, the zoom has a lot more versatility. You can zoom out and zoom in. You could potentially even shoot a wide angle of one scene and then zoom in and then shoot the close-up without having to change lenses. So this is much more geared for run and gun type stuff when you don't have a lot of time, or it's not a very controlled situation, and maybe more guerrilla style filming, live event coverage, and you're having to shoot things at a distance and you can't necessarily get up as close as you'd like to. The downside of that is you're not going to have as shallow of a depth of field. So overall, prime lenses generally have a little bit more of a filmmaking, real film aesthetic, because they generally have that deeper depth of field and better low light in most situations, but there's a bit of a trade-off there. So in my situations, when I use a prime lens is when I know that I have a subject that I can work one-on-one with. We have some time to shoot. It's not a super rushed situation where you have to hop out, get your shots, and then leave. There's more time to collaborate, work with each other, where I can move, get my shots, get physically closer, move away, shoot wide shots, and really capture that more deeper depth of field or shallower depth of field. And then in other situations when I'm doing maybe a live event and I'm shooting coverage, definitely using the zoom lens so that I can get the maximum amount of coverage with different focal lengths without switching lenses. It just really boils down to what kind of coverage that you are shooting.